All right, there we are. Hello, fam. Welcome to Will and Share in the Face of Truth. I'm William. This is Sharon, and
Hi.
we're willing to share with you the truth. And we are welcoming all of y'all here tonight as we are continuing to do our part to keep Black history strong here in America. Even though they're trying to get rid of it and delete it and keep from teaching it in the schools, we are going to keep it going.
Yes.
Each week, we are giving you someone in Black history that you may not be aware of, or give more information of someone you are. And we're also going to start talking about the midterms probably next week because the elections, the primaries are almost all over, and we've got an idea of who's running. So we want to do that. We want to educate all of America, our Black community, our young people, men and women, and our young Black children, boys and girls. They're not getting it in the schools, so they can get it here. So we welcome y'all. We ask that your comments be tasteful, or we will block you. We will definitely block you. The migraine headaches out there, we're not going to have it. We'll block you immediately. So, but we do welcome your comments. We're going to
Yes.
be talking tonight about
Booker T.
Booker T.
Washington.
Washington. He's up. And then I'm going to be coming to you with some commentary on this deal. We'll talk more about that for Iran. We're going to be talking about the Civil Rights and the Voter Rights Act, what we can do to work on this and try to correct the wrong that was done. And
Yes.
then we're going to conclude it by talking about Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Juneteenth is tomorrow. We celebrate it. So we have a good show for you tonight. So here's Cher with Booker T. Washington.
Thank you, Will. Welcome, everybody. As my husband already welcomed you, I just say welcome to you again. We're glad that you're here for the show today. Again, we're talking about Booker T. Washington. Okay. And so we are going to go ahead and start the discussion. If you have anything that you would like to share concerning Booker T. Washington and the things that he stood and fought for, you're welcome to put it up there as Will has already mentioned. We ask that you be polite. We ask that you be respectful on this platform. Thank you very much. Okay, so Booker T. Washington was one of the most influential Black leaders in American history. He was born into slavery and he rose to become an educator, an author, a speaker, and founder of one of the most important Black educational institutions in the United States. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, he was widely regarded as the leading spokesperson for African Americans. Washington believed education, economic self sufficiency, skilled trades, and business ownership were essential for Black advancement. Okay? So his early life, as we already mentioned, he was born into slavery. So Booker, I'm going to try to say his middle name, Taliaferro Washington, was born enslaved on April 5th, 1856, in Franklin County. His mother was Jane Washington, who was also enslaved, and Booker never knew his father, who is believed to have been a white man from a nearby plantation. As a child, Washington experienced forced labor, poverty, a lack of formal education, and harsh conditions of slavery. When the American Civil War ended in 1865 and slavery was abolished, Booker was about 9 years old. Later, he recalled that hearing of emancipation was one of the most important moments of his life. And so I'm going to let Will give some feedback on that uh, with Booker T. Washington and how he was overjoyed because of the Emancipation Proclamation concerning the slaves, and slaves were to be free, okay? And so, if you go ahead, Will.
I read on that he was overjoyed because his life, even though he was only 9 years old, um, this is really sad. He said he does not remember, he did not remember a meal, a normal civilized meal where they sat down, they
Yes.
blessed the food, and everyone was at the table together. He said that the children were fed like animals,
Mm.
and that they'd get a scrap of meat here, some bread here, some milk there. So he did not even realize a normal family setting of a meal. So when he was overjoyed because emancipation meant freedom, and of course we know they didn't have total freedom, but it meant freedom to him, and I'm sure in his mind he was thinking it would be a change would come, and maybe
Yes.
some normalcy would come to his family.
That's very good, Will. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. We have Kabir at Kabir dash XZ. Hi. And then we also have Kabir saying, how much do you rate Donald Trump and Barack Obama? Well, we're not talking about that on this show here, but we are glad that you are here to share your comments.
So we will be talking
Okay.
about the deal, so I'll have my
Yes.
thoughts on that, so stick with us.
All right. So
Maybe
we're going
that will answer your question.
Thank you, honey. All right, so now we're going to get back to Booker T. Washington and his background and the things that he successfully completed while he was here. It says his hunger for education. After emancipation, Washington's family moved to Malden. Although he worked long hours and sought furnaces and coal mines, he desperately wanted an education. He often carried books while working and studied whenever possible. When a local school opened for black children, Washington attended while continuing to work to support his family. He later wrote that learning to read and write opened an entirely new world for him. And as we know, slaves were not allowed back in those day and times, just before the emancipation, to read books or any of that kind of things. And so he had this burning desire in him, Will, to, want to get higher education, to get higher learning. And that should be the desire of not even just black children, but all children should have that desire to want to get higher learning, to want to be educated, to want to be able to have the freedom to be able to read books. And a lot of times, they say you can go out into the different forests or the different parks and stuff, and you can learn, because you can learn of the birds that are out there. You can learn of the different animals that are out there, okay? And so he had that burning desire for more education. And so we want to push that tonight to our young black men, our young black women, our young black children, to have that desire for more education. Don't just stop, at the bare minimal, but push on for higher education as you grow up, higher learning, okay? And so that's something that Booker T. Washington desired.
And it's what we said last week, a lot of the men in slavery,
Yes.
they wanted that, they had a desire to have that higher education and to learn to read because they wasn't able to.
Exactly.
I guess we have it today where it's available to us, so we take it for granted. But they didn't take it for granted. It was something that they desired to be able to do, to read, to get that education, to go to college.
Yes.
And so that's what we have been seeing in these studies that we're doing, especially with the black men and women. They wanted education,
Yes.
and they wanted to better themselves and for the children.
That's very good, Will. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to learn about the Hampton Institute. As a teenager, Washington heard about Hampton Normal and Agricultural Institute in Virginia. Determined to attend, he traveled hundreds of miles, much of it on his feet, on foot. And when he arrived, he reportedly had little money and wore worn out clothing. To gain admission, he was asked to clean a classroom. His careful work impressed school officials, and he was accepted. At Hampton, Washington studied under Samuel Chapman Armstrong. Armstrong strongly influenced Washington's philosophy: hard work, character of development, vocational training, and economic independence. These ideas would shape Washington's future leadership. Okay? Founding Tuskegee Institute. In 1881, Washington was chosen to lead a new school for black students in Tuskegee. This school became the Tuskegee Institute now Tuskegee University. The school began with no campus, little funding, and new resources under Washington's leadership. Students helped build the school's building, make bricks, farm the land, and develop the institution. Tuskegee became one of the most respected Black education centers in America. And so we see how Booker T. Washington kind of rose up, the ladder. He started from the bottom, from slavery, and because he had a desire, because he was determined, all these things are important when you're trying to get from point A to point B. Just because you're down in a certain situation like Booker T. Washington was, you don't have to stay there, okay? You have all the opportunities that's out here like anybody else, and resources out here like anybody else to be able to go into higher learning. You can start by reading books. Parents, this is where we start at with our children. Get them to love to read books, okay? Get your children out of these games that's doing nothing for their brain or their brain waves, okay? Get them into reading. Reading is fundamental, okay? Help put that desire in them, just like Booker T. Washington had that desire to not only learn to read and write, but to learn to go to a higher education school, a higher education college, and learn. And we see this in America today with a lot of our children, Black children especially, where they don't have a desire to learn anymore, and it's very, very sad that our young people are not desiring to learn. Yes. And so we need to help get them on that path of, reading is fundamental. Okay.
So let me stop you there, Sheriff May. We want to say hi to do not dash no 143. We want to say hi to, let me get back to it. We want to say hi to That's Classic Car Guy, that classic car guy. He's asking how we're doing. We're doing fine. And Kabar-IZXZ wanted to know what the topic is. And I typed it in, but we are going to tell you we're teaching on Booker T. Washington. That's our history lesson. And then I'm going to be discussing the Iran deal comparison between President Barack Obama and Trump. And then we're also going to be talking about voter rights and Civil Rights Act briefly. So just to get y'all up to date.
Yeah.
All right, back to you, Sheriff.
Okay. We're going to learn about Washington's philosophy. What was his philosophy? It says he taught the African Americans should obtain education, learn skilled trades, build businesses, acquire property, and demonstrate economic value. He believed economic progress would eventually lead to greater political and social rights, and he was right about that. His approach emphasized practical advancement rather than immediate confrontation with segregation. I'm going to read that part again because that's an important part of everything that he stood for and fought for. It says his approach emphasized practical advancement rather than immediate confrontation with segregation, okay? And so in other words, what Booker T. Washington was saying, Will, is that it's a progress, okay? Rome, I tell my husband all the time, was not built overnight. With everything that Blacks have gone through in this country, from the time of slavery and the slave ships and those that were put on slave ships being brought over here, and we know that there's a better side of the Black community because we did come from princes and we did come from places where we know that we were in established people already before they put us into slavery and brought us over into the Americas. All right. And so just to think of what he's saying, what Booker T. Washington is saying, it takes time. Everything does not happen overnight. And so he was letting them know that he wanted to go with a more developed, slow approach to the practical advancement rather than immediate confrontation with segregation. And so we really, when you think about it, we're back at that place today. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The Atlanta Compromise speech. In 1895, Washington delivered his most famous speech at the Cotton States and International Exposition. The speech became known as the Atlanta Compromise. Washington urged Black Americans to pursue education and economic growth, develop skilled labor, and build strong communities. He suggested that Black and white Southerners could cooperate economically despite social separation. And many white leaders praised the speech, while many Black leaders, however, felt it accepted segregation too readily. Now I'm going to read the speech that he gave, okay? And it was called the Atlanta Exposition Address, or the Atlanta Compromise speech, which was delivered in 1895 by Booker T. Washington, okay, on September 18th, 1895. And you can find this in the public domain, okay? So his speech is in the public domain. So here is the most famous portion of that speech. Quote, 1/3 of the population of the South is of the Negro race. No enterprise seeking the material, civil, or moral welfare of this section can disregard this element of our population and reach the highest success. In other words, he was saying there that the South had more Blacks in it than it did our counterparts of white people, okay? And we want to say hello to Miguel Coelho, 6954. Hi, Miguel. Hi, everybody.
Vito Roy, 5035.
Yes, welcome. All right, and so he was addressing the fact that there were a lot of Black people in the South, okay? And so he said that he was trying to make the case that Black people needed to be able to work and to have education so that we could add something to the economy, okay? And when we read the rest of his speech, you'll see. He said, quote, cast it down in making friends. First he said, quote, cast down your bucket where you are. And then he says, quote, cast it down in making friends in every manly way of the people of all races by whom we are surrounded, okay? And so America as we know it, unquote, America as we know it is a melting pot of people, okay? It's a melting pot of races. But during that time, we know because of everything that was going on with the segregation, the Jim Crow laws and whatnot have you, and the fact that there were certain things that Blacks were not allowed to do. So now he's addressing this to show that even though there are a lot of Blacks in the South, if the whites would allow us to, would have allowed us to, that we could add to some good things to society, okay? So he said, quote, cast it down in agriculture, mechanics, okay? And in domestic service, and in the professions, unquote. Quote, he says the part of the speech was as most remembered in all things that are purely social. We can be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand, in all things essential to mutual progress. Okay? So he brought out the fact that, look, we can be separate as the fingers. See, the fingers don't stick, are not all together. They're open, okay? They're spaced. So we can be separate when it comes to the color of our skin, or we can be one as the hand in all things essential to mutual progress. In other words, we can work together in this. Mm-hmm. Okay? It shouldn't be because of the color of our skin that we're not able to come together and work together for the betterment of this country, for the betterment of our own communities, okay? And this is what he was trying to implement. So near the end of his speech, Washington said, quote, "There's no defense or security for any of us except in the highest intelligence and development of all." He goes on to say the opportunity to earn $1 in a factory just now is worth infinitely more than the opportunity to spend $1 in an opera house. Okay, so I love his reasoning. it was simplistic, you know. It was simple to understand what he was trying to say. Okay, unquote. And then he goes on, it says the speech was received with enthusiastic applause from many white business and political leaders in attendance. Newspapers across the country praised Washington, and he quickly became the most prominent spokesman in America. The speech was a relatively brief speech, about 10 to 15 minutes long when he delivered it. Okay? And so we're going to go ahead and read on because there was some criticism, there was some backlash, and it was from his own people. Okay? So we saw that the white people accepted his speech. They even stood up for him and clapped and gave him a round of applause because they thought it was a wonderful speech. Okay? But on the other hand, there's always pushback when you're trying to stand up and do the right thing. All right? You got something you want to say?
Oh, you want to read?
Oh, I want to save that part right here
Okay.
because we're still getting into his life. Thank you, Will. Okay? So the criticism that came from Booker T. Washington's speech came from W.E.B. Du Bois, who was another civil rights leader, okay, of his time. So one of Washington's most famous critics was W.E.B. Du Bois. Du Bois argued that Black Americans should demand full voting rights, equal protection under the law, immediate civil rights, and higher education opportunities. Du Bois believed Washington's approach risked accepting second-class citizenship. Okay? Their disagreement became one of the most important debates in Black American history. And looking at both of them, I can agree with both sides, you know, to some degree. What about you, Will? What do you say about this?
We went through that when we did W.E. Du Bois a couple of weeks ago, and both of them had a good case. Both of them made some points. We was hoping that they would come together, and as I said, this is an example. We can
Agree.
have constructive criticism,
Yes.
but we need to come together and be as one.
Very good. I agree with you on that. It's funny because, and I'm going to say this, and I mean no harm when I say this, but most of the time when you're standing up for what's right, and when you're trying to do the right thing, when you're trying to work hard to see change happen in our communities and with our people, it's always our people that gives us the bigger problem. Okay, and that's something we as Black people, as Black Americans, as Black citizens need to quit doing. Stop undercutting one another. Let's get behind one another. Let's get beside one another. Let's hold one another up, okay? Let's help one another to push the same vision. And we talk about this every time on our show, on our platform. We need to learn how to get on board with the same vision, even though we don't agree on everything, all right? And we're not going to, like Will said. We're going to have our disagreements, but we don't have to fall out about anything, okay? And so we need to just get on the same page. That didn't happen with this last voting in 2025, 2024. Sorry, I get my years mixed up with that. But yeah, we didn't get everybody on the same side, on the same platform. Like we were trying to do, and other people with their platforms were trying to do. You have the defiant lawyer. He was trying to put the information out there about what was coming if we, voted for a certain individual. And now it's out here. The Project 2025, they are tearing up the African American community. And my husband's going to touch on a lot of that in just a minute, okay? Okay, we have to get on the same page, Black people. So, the criticism from W.E.B. Du Bois. One of Washington's most famous critics was W.E.B. Du Bois. Du Bois argued that Black Americans should demand full voting rights, equal protection under the law, immediate civil rights, and higher education opportunities. Du Bois believed, Washington's approach risks accepting second-class citizenship. Their disagreement became one of the most important debates in Black American history. Behind the scenes activism. Although often portrayed as accommodating segregation, historians have found that Washington quietly supported legal challenges against discrimination. He donated money to court cases. He supported anti-lynching efforts. He helped found civil rights organizations and assisted black journalists and activists. Publicly, he often spoke cautiously. Privately, he frequently worked against racial injustice. Look, we don't have to be flamboyant, y'all, all right, to get the work done. Booker T. Washington did a lot of things behind the scene, and he did it quietly. A lot of times we put out the information, we put our plan out here on social networks of what we are going to do as a black people, and we spill the beans to those that don't need to know what our plan is. And this is what Booker T. Washington did. He kept a lot of things to himself, and it behooves us to learn how to shut our mouths and to learn how to keep what we are planning, okay, to get back in the fight, to make change in this country. It behooves us to zip our lips and keep it to ourselves, keep it amongst ourselves until we actually put it into motion. Okay, so this is something that we can learn from Booker T. Washington. Come on, black people. All right. So the national influence. Washington became a trusted advisor to presidents and major business leaders. He met with Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, and in 1906, Roosevelt invited Washington to dine at the White House. This was a historic event and provoked racist backlash throughout parts of the country. Now, we ain't gonna see this, are we? Where we being invited into the White House to be able to sit and talk with the now sitting president. Because why? We have so much racism and stuff that's being pushed across the board against black people for whatever the reason. And so we're not going to see them just open their arms and invite us into the White House. As a matter of fact, they're tearing it down. They're building ballrooms, okay? Now, let's go into the author and speaker. Washington wrote several books, including Up From Slavery and The Future of the American Negro. Up From Slavery remains one of the most influential autobiographies in American history. In it, Washington described his journey from slavery to national leadership. His death. Booker T. Washington died on November the 14th, 1915 at age 59. At the time of his death, Tuskegee had grown into a nationally respected institution. He had become one of the most recognized black leaders in America, and his influence extended across education, politics, and business. He was buried on the campus of Tuskegee. Washington's legacy remains complex. Supporters argue that he built institutions that empowered generations, created educational opportunities where few existed, and promoted economic self-reliance and demonstrated remarkable leadership after slavery. Critics, however, argue he was too willing to accommodate segregation publicly and that he did not challenge disenfranchisement aggressively enough. Most modern historians see Washington as a pragmatic leader operating in an era of extreme racial violence. They note that while he publicly emphasized economic progress, he often quietly supported efforts for civil rights. Now we see that there are those of his supporters that supported what he did and the accomplishments that Booker T. Washington made, but we also see how that there were critics that felt that he was too willing to accommodate segregation publicly and that he did not challenge disenfranchisement aggressively enough, okay? And so you're going to have those two groups of people at all turns when you're trying to implement something, or when you're trying to make change or changes, okay, that will affect the black communities. You're going to have the critics that's going to talk about you and say you're not doing enough. And you're going to have the supporters that's going to say, yes, you're doing great, okay? You have that on both sides of the spectrum. And so that's something that he dealt with. He dealt with it in his own way because it didn't cause him, Will, to back you know, to put his back against the wall, or to turn away, or to be undetermined as to what it was that he was trying to fulfill. Okay, and so we're thankful to Booker T. Washington that he stood even though the critics were harsh on him. And we always have critics, but how do we deal with the criticism?
I think all of them, the patriots of old, civil rights activists, even though they may not have agreed on everything, I think they all contributed to
Yes.
the progress of civil rights, because what they did was they did something. They spoke out.
Exactly.
So it's better to do something than to sit back and do nothing. So they may not have agreed on it, but all those in the past that's fought for civil rights contributed something
Yes.
to get us our civil rights.
Yes, very well. I love that, because like you said, you know, we may not agree on everything, but we should all be working toward the same goal, to see change happen in our community, in our homes, with our families and our children. Okay, it's time to make change happen, especially in this era and this atmosphere that we are living in right now, because we're back to square one. And so it's time for Black people to come together, you know, to put on our thinking caps. Okay, how can we turn this thing around for our good and for the next generation that's coming up behind us? Okay, and so that's where we are. Now, like I said, Will has a lot more to say about that. So why Booker T. Washington matters today. Booker T. Washington helped transform Black education after slavery and demonstrated how institutions could be built even under severe oppression. His debates with W.E.B. Du Bois helped shape two enduring questions that still resonate today. Should social change focus first on economic empowerment or political rights? That's the first question. Think about that. Question number two, how should oppressed communities pursue equality when facing powerful resistance? I'm going to read those two again. These are the questions that we have to ask ourselves right now at this point in time, Black people. Okay. The number one question is, should social change focus first on economic empowerment or political rights? What do you think, Will? Which one first? Economic empowerment or political rights?
Economic.
Okay. How?
Because when you have economic empowerment, you can control the political.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
I kind of looked at it on the reverse. I kind of felt like that social change should start with political rights. Because if you don't have the right to do anything, how can you be empowered? You know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm looking at it in the wrong perspective, and if I am, help me out. Yeah, because you got to have the right to be, and the freedom to be able to do what's necessary to make the change, or to empower the people. Okay? And then how should oppressed communities pursue equality when facing powerful resistance? So I'm going to let you go first on that.
I think we just need to look back at what our civil rights activists, our ancestors did, how they approached it. Nonviolent, first of all, the Lord, seek the Lord first.
Yes.
And then nonviolent, and protest, peaceful protest, and pushing for change in the law.
It's good. It's very good. I like that. So how should oppressed communities pursue equality when facing powerful resistance? We're living in that time right now where we are facing powerful resistance against the oppressed, okay? Against Black people, against minorities, okay? Against the marginalized. And so what do we need to do? What do we do at this point where we are, where Project 2025 is trying to ruin our lives, is trying to ruin our everyday freedoms and rights and civil rights that our ancestors fought so hard to get? What do we do at this point when we're up against a powerful resistance? Okay, so I want all of our people, Black people especially, to put on your thinking caps. And I love what Will just said, and that is to go back to what the foundation that our ancestors laid for us, okay? And everything that they experienced and went through and refused to give up the fight until they saw change come. And this is where we have to get to even in this day and time, and that is to refuse to give up the fight, okay? Refuse to give up the fight, even though we're fighting against a powerful resistance. We're fighting against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places, okay? And that's in the Word of God. So we need to pray like Will said first. Seek God for a plan, seek God for direction. And then once God gives us that, we need to walk in that. Okay? Okay, so Booker T. Washington's life story from slavery to becoming one of the most influential Americans of his era remains one of the most remarkable journeys in United States history. Okay? Okay, so at this time, we're going to wrap that up about Booker T. Washington, and we're going to give him a round of applause. Thank you to our late ancestor, Booker T. Washington, for his fight in the civil rights. Amen, okay?
So what do we have there before?
Okay, so we have our 3 things to remember.
Do you have any quotes from them?
And we have our quotes. Yes, which one would you like to do first, Phil?
I'll do the quotes. So these are the quotes from Booker T. Washington. Number 1, I will permit no man to narrow and degrade my soul by making me hate him. Very good. 2, I have learned that success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has overcome while trying to succeed.
That's good.
3rd, associate yourself with people of good quality, for it is better to be alone than to be in bad company. And a lie doesn't become truth, wrong doesn't become right, and evil doesn't become good just because it is accepted by a majority.
I love all 4 of those, okay? All 4 of Booker T. Washington's quotes. The last thing we're going to do is the 3 things to remember, okay? And so these are just 3 things that you want to kind of just think about, and kind of got these from Booker T. Washington and his life and the legacy that he left behind, okay? And the struggles that he went and the things that he endured to get to that place where he could speak out, okay, and see change happen. So the first thing is, when you have something to offer to the Black community and to society as a whole, don't shrink back or take down because of a few harsh critics of the same skin color, okay? So stand on what you believe. Don't take down, okay? And number 2 is, in order to see change in the Black communities, we must be willing to compromise on one hand and be rigid or unwilling on the other hand as to the change we desire to see. We got to learn how to use intelligent negotiations. And this is something that Booker T. Washington did, okay? And number 3, when looking to make an impact within the Black community, use your platform wisely, speak plainly and effectively, and state your case and cause with discretion and not aggression, okay? And I'm going to give you the meaning of discretion and aggression. Discretion means the freedom or power to make your own judgments and decisions, or the tactful quality of behaving in a way that avoids causing offense or drawing unwanted attention, okay? It's all about how you carry yourself. And I think Booker T. Washington carried himself wonderfully around the people that he had to stand and give his speech in front of, because it was pretty much an all-white audience. There were some blacks there, possibly, but it was more whites than blacks. And so we got to learn how to carry ourselves, okay, in a nice manner when we're speaking and when we're talking. So aggression means to be hostile, violent, or forceful behavior that is intended to cause harm, intimidation, or dominance over others. And so there's a time and a place, and I believe the Bible talks about that in Ecclesiastes around the third chapter, there's a time and a season to everything under the sun, okay? And so we need to learn the difference between using discretion at a certain time or being aggressive, all right? And so we want to encourage everybody, all of our black people. I'm going to turn it over to Will in just a second, that the midterms are coming. And so we want y'all to get out and vote, okay? And so Will is going to take over from here, and he's going to give you some good information as well.
Okay, before we get started, one last person, Adam Motz, 5867. We welcome you to the show.
Hi, Adam.
So as far as the Civil Rights and the Voter Rights Act, of course, we know that they are being attacked. The Voter Rights Act is almost gone. It's still there, but it's been shredded so much by the Supreme Court, led by Sambo Clarence Thomas, and that we know that we need to, only way we're going to get it back is by legislation.
Yes.
So we have to rally around candidates that are going to be working for black people. And I say that in order for us to come out of this, number one, we have to continue to seek the Lord.
Yes.
The Lord must be first in all things. We must seek Him, get our plan from Him, get our guidance from Him, and by the Word of God to be obedient to that. So that's number one. Number two, I believe that we definitely need in 2026 and 2028 to come out and vote blue. And we know that there's some things that the Democratic Party we don't agree with, but we got to put that aside. We have to concentrate on black people now. We need to concentrate it. Everybody needs to come together. The third parties, the African diaspora, the black Democrats, we need to come together, put away our differences. And I know that some don't like the Democratic Party, say they ain't done nothing for us. Well, let me tell you, some Republicans have done even less.
Come on.
We're in the day and age now where we have to think about ourselves. And our best bet now is the Democratic Party to get back in control. We need them to take over the House and the Senate in 2026 to stop this administration from enacting laws that is devastating to the black community. And then in 2028, we need to overwhelmingly increase the House and the Senate and get a Democratic president in there. And when they're in there, there's these things that we need them to do. One, give black people their reparations.
Yes.
Two, they need to add 4 liberal left judges to the Supreme Court to cancel out these conservatives that are in there. Number 3, we need to demand that they get laws, the voter rights and the civil rights updated. The John Lewis Act needs to be passed. We need to update the Civil Rights Act. We need to undo these things that this administration is doing. Now, the other things that are happening, once they get in, then we can start demanding those things. But the Republican Party is not the answer for black people now. So whether you want to believe it or not, I know the African diaspora, Philip Scott and the other lady on there, y'all need to get it together.
Yeah.
Put that aside. We know we've been treated wrong. We know we've been treated wrong by the Democrats and the Republicans.
That's right.
And what we need for the oppressed to get help is for those black people like Philip Scott, like those Savvy and all them that have made it and ain't hurting, to get together and think about those people in the South, think about the poor people down there who are trying to make it. We need to start thinking about each other, okay? These entertainers and athletes that have all the money, you need to start thinking about others, because y'all weren't always there.
That's right.
Y'all had to start from someplace too.
Yes.
So we need to start coming together, put our differences aside, get the blue in there, and then we can start making and fighting for the changes.
Yes.
So that's my take on that.
Can I add something to what you said,
Will?
I was thinking about when Obama was in office, for the 2 terms that he served in there, something that he was trying to do, and he said this often. He said we need to share the wealth in this country. There is enough wealth in this country for everybody to have a small slice of the pie, from the lowest of lows to the middle ground people to the highest of people. There's enough resources, there's enough money, and we're seeing this in this country to wipe out homelessness, to wipe out poverty, to wipe out the healthcare situation, with the minorities not receiving the same type of health care when they go to the doctor as our white counterparts. It's time to quit being selfish in this country. It's time to share the wealth. And that's something that Obama was trying to push the 8 years that he was in office. Okay? So we need to get out of this thing that America is a all white, MAGA, white national. It is not. America first belonged to the native Indian and the Africans that were already here. And then the Europeans came over to try to take over everything. So this MAGA ideology needs to be squashed. It needs to come to a head. This racist division that's being pushed needs to come to a head. There's plenty for all of us Americans, okay, to have a piece of the pie in America. So I'm going to give it back to.
And we know that President Barack Obama wasn't perfect. We know that. But what do you got now?
Exactly.
You want to criticize President Obama? Fine. Say something about what we got in there now. And how because President Barack Obama didn't hurt the black people like this one is doing. So say something about this one now. So let's talk about the brilliant President Barack Obama's Iran plan and dumb Trump's plan. Okay, that's how I entitled this. Brilliant President Barack Obama and dumb Trump. Back in 2015, President Obama helped to facilitate the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which is commonly referred to as the Iran nuclear deal, and it was said to be a historical deal that would prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. And this deal was not negotiated by President Obama. It was negotiated by Secretary of State John Kerry, an experienced, competent statesman, and also, I believe, a nuclear physicist or a nuclear expert. And those were the ones that was negotiating the peace talk, compared to this incompetence that we have negotiating, and J.D. Vance, Jared Kushner, and some other guy.
Yes, Hegseth.
No, Hegseth's not negotiating. So President Trump, he withdrew from it in 2018, saying it was a horrible, one-sided deal that should never have been made. The Iran deal is defective, and it's going no, it shouldn't have been made according to him because a black man got credit for it.
Exactly.
Let's just give it. So given that Trump's called Obama's deal horrible and one-sided, it seems reasonable to expect the text of Trump's deal to offer a different kind from the text of President Obama's deal. Currently, other than the release of the draft by Trump, are there any sources on how the text of President Trump's proposed Iran deal deals differently from the text of President Obama's deal? The answer is no. What does President Trump's proposed Iran deal have that President Obama's Iran deal lacked, and vice versa? What does President Trump's proposal lack that President Obama's deal included? Nothing. Trump has no plan. Because number one, he's ignorant and he's incompetent.
That's right.
We see that already. This deal that they say, even the Republicans are saying, what in the world?
Yes.
Because they're incompetent. I told you when these people got in office and when these people were confirmed, everyone was laughing. Oh, they're not qualified, but hey, Trump. I said, y'all can laugh now, but when it comes time for them to do the actual work, you're going to see the incompetence come out.
Yes.
You saw the incompetence of Heslop when he bombed 180 children because they didn't have the right information. Now it's coming out.
Yes.
Incompetence. You're seeing this deal. It's not really. Let me just get to this point. This is not a deal.
That's right.
It's a memorandum of agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy gets up there talking about, we got all the cards. They got to make a deal. We destroyed their infrastructure. We destroyed their military. We're sitting
Don't
pretty.
believe the lies.
And this is all you got for it?
Wow.
They got the Strait of Hormuz opened. Well, it was open before you got 13 servicemen killed and 400 soldiers injured in military bases
Yes,
and
my
Middle
goodness.
Eastern countries bombed. The Strait of Hormuz was already open.
Yes, it was.
You're giving Iran $300 billion. Well, President Obama gave them $1.7 billion of their own money.
Yes.
Had the deal stayed intact, we wouldn't have to have given them anything. And we would have had our military intact, and we wouldn't have been spending $25 billion a day, and we wouldn't have had the higher fuel prices.
That's right, Will.
So,
So true.
I mean, I don't know what to say. He's ignorant and incompetent. Like his wife stole Michelle Obama's speech because she was too dumb to write one of her own. Dumb will end up with the same deal as President Obama, or probably even a worse deal because of the incompetence that are negotiating this.
Sad.
This comes from a named source. So, there you have it. This is what y'all voted for. The ones that voted for him. Incompetence. You lost 13 lives, 400 wounded. Got the Middle East, and we bombed them. Killed 180 innocent children. And we, so big and bad, we got the cards. They got to make a deal for us. You killed their leaders, and now they got worse leaders. And this is where we are. And you don't even have a deal. You have a memorandum.
Wow.
And they still have no deal to keep them from now making nuclear weapons. Y'all think about it.
Make sense.
I'll leave it up to you.
Yes. And I will add too, that's very good, Will, everything you brought up, because it's the truth, and this is what we're about here in the face of truth. We have our t-shirts on, in the face of truth, okay? So yeah, it's a mess. America is a mess right now, and it's a mess because of the leadership that we have in this country, okay? From the top of the leadership, which is President Trump, to everyone that he's placed in his administration, the incompetence is so visibly seen. The lies that's been told, the deception that's been told to the American people. It's just a sad state of affairs all the way around, because the money that he caught himself giving to Iran to bring this war to a conclusion, of which he did not bring it to a conclusion. What it looked like to me, Will, is that it was a surrenderance. Here, we'll give you everything that you asked for. We just want to just surrender and get this over with and put it behind us. And it's caused a mess, because that's money that could have went to helping the poor here in America. That's money that could have went to the education system, okay? In the inner cities where schools are closing left and right here, not only in Columbus, but also all over. And so that's money that could have helped with the lunch program for young kids here in America. You see what I'm saying? So you've sent all this billions of dollars over to Iran as a sign of surrenderance. And Iran has won the war, okay? They won the war with America, and they won the war with Israel. Because America and Israel, Netanyahu, underestimated Iran and their ability and capability to be able to stand up and fight for themselves. And it's sad. It's a shame. It really is what has happened with this thing in Iran. And so there's so much more that we can talk about tonight when it comes to this incompetency of the president, his character, and the things that have come out with the Epstein files. Just horrible and sickening. And so, yeah, we need to go to the polls and we need to vote. And
You see, from Eddie
mhm.
is here in the house today. All right, last thing we're going to talk about, Juneteenth. Tomorrow is Juneteenth.
Yes.
So let's talk about what Juneteenth is. On June 19th, 1865, nearly 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln emancipated enslaved Africans in America, Union troops arrived at Galveston Bay, Texas, with news of freedom. More than 250,000 African Americans embraced freedom by executive decree in what became known as Juneteenth or Freedom Day. The Emancipation Proclamation declared all enslaved people in Confederate states legally free at midnight on January 1st, 1863. And it marked the first watch night service where African Americans gathered
Yes.
in anticipation of the Emancipation Proclamation. That's where we get the watch night services on New Year's Eve from.
That's right.
Okay. And officially on June 19th, 1865, freedom for enslaved people in Texas was officially announced by Union troops in Galveston Bay, leading to the celebration of Juneteenth. Juneteenth is recognized as the nation's second Independence Day, celebrated primarily within the African American community, but largely unknown by Americans. And these troops that went into Galveston were mostly black Union troops, and they had the honor of telling those slaves that they were finally free.
Yes.
Okay? And so the 13th Amendment did ended the slavery throughout the United States. And so, but not everyone in the Confederate territory would immediately be free because
That's right.
they had to win the war. And once they won the war and got into, this was like April, May, June, 2 months after the Civil War ended, that these slaves in Texas was able to get the news that they were free.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people saying that we shouldn't have had Juneteenth because we celebrated close to July 4th. Well, Juneteenth is more of an independent
Yes.
day for us. Why should black people celebrate July 4th when that was independent from a nation
Yes.
that gave them the freedom to put into bondage another race because of the color of their skin? That's what they're celebrating July 4th.
Yes.
The ability to enslave people, the ability to wipe out the Native Americans, the ability to have Jim Crow laws, the ability to systematic racism. That's what they're celebrating on July 4th. Juneteenth is true independence because we were free from foremost slavery, but we still was under a type of slavery and still are today. But we celebrate because it was a celebration of a wrong that was righted. And only because of our Lord. Not Abraham Lincoln, because he didn't want to free him. He did it for other reasons. It was God and his divine inspiration and his divine intervention that freed the slaves. And it will be God that will continue to free us.
That's right.
As we go forward.
That's right. Amen. Now we need to address from Eddie. You just made a statement. You're calling somebody Big Mike, and then he also said the CIA is Iran, and then he's calling somebody stupid, and then you old fool. Eddie, we've asked that you, when you make your comments, that you be respectful. Now we will be taking you down if you call yourself doing this on the platform while we're speaking and while we're bringing out truth, because that's what we're about here. We're first of all saved and love the Lord Jesus Christ. He is our Savior. And so if you're not going to be polite, if you're not going to be nice, then don't put anything up there that we're going to block you out on.
Clarify what you're saying.
Yeah, clarify what you're saying, Mike or Eddie. Yeah.
All right, so that concludes our show tonight. Don't forget on Facebook, Sunday at 11:30, we have our Sunday morning worship service for the True Apostolic Holiness Church. And on Tuesday night at 7 p.m., we have our On Fire for Jesus, a Bible study. We'll be in Psalms 16 and 17. And then next Thursday, we'll be here in the Face of Truth here on 6:30 p.m. So for Sharr, I'm Will. Thank you for joining us tonight. Lord willing, we'll see y'all Sunday. Have a good evening.
Thank y'all for coming. And I hope you learned something.